The Take with Martha and Mona Lisa.
Hello and welcome to The Take, a review of news stories making headlines across the world. We are Martha and Mona Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Some of the stories we're following this week literally made us cringe, but we won't spoil it for you. We'll get straight into health check. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Breast cancer is the second leading cause of death in Zimbabwe, especially among women over the age of 40. They are risk factors. They're things that we tend to ignore about our health that could lead to breast cancer. Early detection and always having an active lifestyle are some of the most important things we need to be cognizant of as we celebrate Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
I think we take that for granted, especially having an active life. Like what you said, we need to have an active life.
Yeah.
And I know we were in a lockdown, and most of the time people were just at home, sitting,
doing
eating,
nothing,
binging, watching TV, and actually forgetting about our health. So like you say, one of the critical aspects of breast cancer is that to make sure that as a woman you're always active and you also have a diet, a balanced diet. I mean, that cannot be emphasized enough.
Absolutely. And let's also remember that 10% of all breast cancer cases reported in Zimbabwe are linked to a hereditary or genetic birth defect. So it's important to talk and have conversations with your relatives
family
and
history.
friends and understand what your family history and health problems might be. Anasuma Samvu, who is our news correspondent, news reporter at ZiFM Stereo, filed this report with an oncologist, Dr. Patience Mba, and this is what she had to say.
So breast cancer is actually quite prevalent. It is the second most common cancer in Zimbabwe, coming after cervical cancer. Worldwide, it is the commonest cancer amongst women. So breast cancer can actually affect 1 in every 8 women worldwide. About 10% of all breast cancers are linked to a hereditary component which is traceable, but that is a very small fraction. The larger percentage, you may not have an identifiable genetic risk factor. So then we look at, is it possible that you had a mutation, a sporadic mutation, which is outside of your family, or you just got unfortunate and then developed breast cancer due to some of these modifiable risk factors later on in your life. So you find that a woman can have severe hot flashes, irritation, mood swings. They feel that they're getting too old, their skin is wrinkling, and they still want to feel younger. So you find that some women will go and will get estrogen replacement tablets, and often these will then increase one's risk of getting a breast cancer. My word of advice would be, may every person out there, particularly women, go and seek breast cancer screening, particularly in the month of October when everybody is going pink and talking about breast cancer and, you know, just giving out information. Just go and get your breast checked.
All right. So I guess the bigger conversation that women should be having is, how often do you screen yourself? How often do you examine your breasts when you're bathing? Is that something you do, Mona Lisa?
No, I'll confess, it's not something I would do on an ordinary. I
when
don't
you're
touch
bathing?
my boobs when I'm bathing.
Why not?
But I don't know.
Wait,
it's
so
just
you
like
wash everything else except for this part?
No, I wash it, but I don't touch it. Maybe passively.
Yeah.
Maybe passively. But when we're talking about breast cancer awareness, it's something that you have to be deliberate about. Now,
Absolutely.
earlier on, we spoke about knowing about your family history. But, you know, are we comfortable having these conversations, especially with people in our family, and especially considering the type of culture we have in Zimbabwe? Are you comfortable having that conversation with your mom or your tete or your maigu?
Do you know, that's very interesting, because when my mom actually suggested that I get my own breasts examined, because she has this annual health check done, and because she's over the age of 50, almost 60, you know, these are things that she deliberately has to do. My mom literally examined my breasts.
Examine how?
she literally touched them, examined them, felt them up to see if there were any lumps. It was a little awkward because it's something that's never happened before, but this was me prior going to get my breast examined at a health facility.
Okay.
So I think I encourage women to
have that conversation. You
have
speak
conversations.
Of lumps. It's one of the symptoms of breast cancer.
Breast cancer.
Lumps under your underarms.
Exactly.
Underarms is something that you need to look out for.
Lymph nodes are also one of the signs and symptoms. Discoloration of the breast itself, changes in size, irritation. And one of the things that I found interesting was excessive itchiness of your breast can signal something going on.
Okay, so you need to go get screened if you're experiencing any of that. So we have been seeing a lot of videos going viral on social media, and I know we've had a lot of challenges on social media. When I speak challenges, you know what I mean, right? Like, you know, pic challenges or video challenges.
Yeah.
And there was a sexy pic challenge that went viral last week. And what's disturbing about this challenge, it's students in school uniform, in very interesting positions, indulging in interesting activities.
I think interesting is an understatement,
right?
Mona Lisa. I think what they were very compromising images, provocative, overly sexualized pictures of teenagers in school uniform.
And they are
doing
willing
what they
fully,
thought was the most sexual thing they could do on camera.
And they were willingly recording this by themselves. I didn't even have a boyfriend in high school, Martha. What are these kids high on? What do you think this is about? Like, who do you think? I don't know. I know we don't want to play the blame game, but where would you point a finger at right now?
I think right now the finger needs to be pointed at the school kids themselves.
They need to take responsibility.
Before we look to the outside world and who's responsible, before we blame it on the sanctions like we always do as Zimbabweans, I think it's important for us to say that young kids, adolescents are having sex at an early age. We live in the digitalized era, so information is spread at the rate of sound.
Right.
So anything that happens in South Africa can quickly and
it
easily
actually
find
started
itself.
in South Africa. The challenge,
the Sexy Pic Challenge, hashtag Sexy Pic Challenge, actually started and originated in South Africa. But what we see happening in Zimbabwe, Mona Lisa, is a sexual tension brewing among our teenagers. They have phones, they have laptops, they see these things, they probably have access to pornographic sites, inappropriate material online, so they're experimenting. I think that we need to start having conversations about what is safe for teenagers to access online. Do young people have access to sexual and reproductive health rights? And thirdly, can we have a conversation about including legislation in our country that allows for that to take place?
I blame the people that give access to the phones and the laptops and the Wi-Fi. The parents and caregivers. I blame them. I think that with the state of our economy right now, I think parents are too busy focusing on making money, putting bread on the table, which is justifiably so. But I don't think parents are actually having a conversation with their children about this thing. So we can sit here and talk about what we think, but let's hear from the students themselves what they think this is about. Have a listen.
I blame ourselves, one, but mostly our parents. I feel like in an African dynamic, most parents don't have a communication kind of skill with their children. It's more like, don't do this, but they'll never go into depth why it's so dangerous. Like the example you've given of the pictures of nudes going viral, children behaving badly at school. Not a lot of parents will tell their children that this is bad because this can be tracked back to you when you now want to apply for jobs or university. Not a lot of parents go down into depth into why this is such a bad idea for children to be a part of.
What we expect here is these kids don't live in isolation. There are so many factors that are motivating them to do the same. Social media being one of them. These are scenarios that if you really look at the films that they watch, some of the countries that are close by like South Africa, several of these videos and scenes are replicated. But the most important point basically is this what the nation wants?
I think there's this growing trend that if you want to be famous or if you want to be liked, you have to pose in a certain way. It's more like the issue of social media. We see like celebrities, the way they dress. So it's more like young people trying to emulate or copy the lifestyle of celebrities. But in the end, it's just because sometimes your friends are telling you this is the cool thing to do, it's the in thing to do. So due to wanting to fit into a group of people, a young person can end up getting themselves into taking pictures whether they're naked, taking up pornographic stuff. So it's itself, because as the educational sector, kids are supposed to be empowered, they're supposed to have good values and norms that are imparted to them by the teachers.
Teachers for not being responsible enough to pitch up and to make sure exam classes are being prepared for their own exams, because you leave children in a place where, like, it's that cliche that when the cats are away, the mice will play. And surely you can't really blame children off the back of the year that they've had such a stressful year and they didn't even know if they were going to write exams or not. They obviously will act up.
I'm sitting with my parents. They're wondering if I'm doing the same things at school, because now we do not realize that the moment we do something, whether it's good or bad, it determines whether my reputation is going to be uplifted or it's going to be downtrodden. So the moment we do stuff like that, then it's not a good reflection at all on the girl child.
So other people are actually blaming this sort of behavior to the absence of teachers in schools. Now, as you know, writing classes have opened, the upper sixes, the form fours, and the grade sevens. However, these videos are mostly seen from high schools. So there's an argument that it's because teachers are absent. Now, we all know the story. Teachers right now are earning an equivalent of 30 to 35 US dollars when you
plus the 75
US dollar COVID allowance, which is not in US dollars actually. It's like you get
can't
it
redeem it
in US dollars. And it's
liquidated.
called a US dollar domestic nostro. I mean, it's only in Zimbabwe where we have something like that. But anyway, they are demanding about, well, not about, they are demanding, they're specific. They want 520 US dollars. And their argument is that this is the same amount of money that they were earning in October 2018, which is 2 years ago. And mind you, we were in a 1:1 era. So it's a completely different ball game altogether. And we need to also recognize that the family basket of family about 5 to 6 is about 17,000 Zimbabwean dollars. So can we safely say that what they're demanding is realistic?
I think that teachers need to be a little cognizant of the social, political, and economic environment that we're living in. This is not 2008. There was no COVID in 2008. Things were much different. We had foreign direct investment coming into the country back then. We don't have that kind of luxury right now. And our gross domestic product is what confines and what informs what government is.
So what would you say is the realistic salary right now?
I don't know what the realistic salary is. We have to look at the fiscus. We are entering the rainy season. Government and the Civil Protection Unit is responsible for ensuring that any disasters that may or may not occur as a result of the rainy season are taken care of.
So the fiscus is strained right now.
There are families out there that are relying on the government for tonight's meal. So for us to say that we want 520 US dollars for teachers, just 3 weeks ago, members of parliament said they wanted 7,000 US dollars.
Everyone has demands.
For doing what? I mean, everybody has demands, but I think we have to also meet at the table and meet each other halfway. So speaking of trends, this last week, Nigerians were online with the hashtag #EndSARS. So SARS is the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. That's a special unit of the police force in Nigeria. They have been accused of everything from police brutality to raiding homes to beating civilians and even going as far as sexual assault on female civilians. Now, everybody from Davido to Wizkid to Burna Boy, the big stars in Nigeria, and even as far as the United States, P. Diddy was even in support of the movement in Nigeria. This yielded results because the state has since announced that the Special Anti-Robbery Squad will be abolished for good in Nigeria. But when we bring it back home in Zimbabwe, this last week we saw a video making the rounds on social media of a Zupco bus packed with people and police officers throwing tear gas canisters in the bus on civilians. Now, these police officers have since been arrested, but it has called for police to be less brutal with civilians. I'm told there were kids on board that bus who inevitably inhaled tear gas. What's wrong with our policing in Africa, Mona Lisa?
This is just depressing, Martha. It's not right under whatever standard. You cannot do that. And like you're saying, we're seeing a trend in Africa across the world where police are just going on another level. And I know the role of the police is to make sure to maintain law and order in communities and to protect the citizens, right? That's their ultimate responsibility. So I guess the question then becomes, how do you maintain law and order? But certainly throwing a tear gas in a bus is not maintaining law and order.
Especially because they were kids. I'm told there was a mother who had a 3, if not 2-month-old baby on board. I'm wondering what the health implications for this young child will be. We're seeing a complete disregard for human life and the well-being of citizens. I mean, under what circumstances do you use tear gas? I know it's mostly used to disperse unruly crowds, but in this case, civilians on a bus trying to get from point A to point B, how is this dispersing any crowd?
Exactly. Where do you draw the line, Martha? I know we've had this conversation before, again, here on The Take. Where do you draw the line in implementing your responsibility, your role as a police, and actually being inhumane? Because if someone is fleeing from the scene, is running away,
that can be understandable.
Right? That's a sign of surrender. Why are you attacking them?
Looters looting shops during what we've seen in Zimbabwe's demonstrations. I can understand the legal part of that happening, but civilians seated in a bus, unarmed, and you throw a tear gas canister on them,
does that count for, I know it's such a harsh word when we use it, and sometimes there's been arguments that you can't actually call it brutality. Does that count for police brutality?
I think in this case it was police brutality because those police officers have since been arrested. But I had a conversation with a human rights lawyer, Doug Coltart, on the events that we saw unfolding in Nigeria and here in Zimbabwe with policing. So let's have a listen to what he had to say. Mr. Coltart, thank you so much for your time with us today. I want to believe that you've seen the video that was making rounds on social media, police throwing tear gas canisters on a Zupco bus that had passengers. Tell us about the legal and the human rights perspective on this action by police officers. We understand that they've since been arrested and put into custody, but is this legal at all in any country?
No, it's certainly not legal. Our police service has a duty to uphold human rights, to respect the rights of citizens. Unfortunately, we have seen this is a systemic problem in Zimbabwe, is meted out against innocent citizens. So, yeah, certainly it's not lawful. It's illegal. I hadn't heard that they'd been arrested. That is good to hear, because it's impunity that breeds this type of action from the police, and so that needs to be put an end to.
Okay, and quickly, just give me a comment on what you thought about Nigeria's #EndSARS. That's the special anti-robbery squad that was eventually abolished by the state after widespread protests over police brutality, like we're talking about there in Nigeria. Is this something that African countries can start to sort of copy and paste? Where there's a problem, let's use solutions that have worked in other countries to dissolve contentious issues such as police brutality.
Absolutely. I think we need to learn from one another as Africans and as African countries about things that are being done better in other countries. I think the abolition of SARS is really a victory for ordinary Nigerians who took it upon themselves to raise the issue of police brutality, to go to the streets peacefully demonstrating and put pressure on their government to deal with the issue. I think from what I hear from my Nigerian friends is that this is in their view only the beginning.
So I know that we tend to not want to accuse the police of any wrongdoing because they are within the confines of their mandate. They took an oath to protect civilian lives. But this is unheard of. We must never see this happening in the African continent.
We need to do better. We
Yeah.
need to be better people. We need to come together and unite on issues that affect us, regardless of which political party you're affiliated to, regardless of which religion you're part of, regardless of where you work,
Yeah.
regardless of everything. Let's come together.
Yeah, and in the famous words of Andy Brown, Mapurisa emuno muharare, please, trukumbira tapota. Exercise a little restraint. These are people you're dealing
Human
with. These
beings.
are not animals. Ndimaye bemungu, ndibaba bemungu.
Right.
So can we ensure that people leave their house and make it safely back home without worrying about Mapurisa
Right.
along the way? So that's our take for this week. I'm Martha Mamonde.
And I'm Mona Lisa Dube. Till next time.
Ta-ta.
The Take with Martha and Mona Lisa.